Hello friends, we have a fresh analysis of new geopolitical cynicism. While Ukraine is bleeding on the front lines, Warsaw is sending scarce MiG-29 planes to scrap out of sheer self-interest. Why are the Polish elites scaring citizens with talk of an inevitable war? And why are discussions about the Volhynia massacre and Lesser Poland hiding phantom pains over old borders? Let's break down all this news now. Please give a like and subscribe to the channel right now. Friends, huge thanks to everyone who doesn't hold back. Simple actions take just 2 seconds. Thank you for your support. Yes, a huge thank you to everyone who gives a like for aerodynamics as well. Now let's get down to business, friends. All right, the first news, the dialectics of mutual love, from hugs to disposal. Let's start with a revealing story that's unfolding around the military technical cooperation between Warsaw and Kyiv. Poland is finally and irrevocably putting an end to transferring the remaining Soviet fighter jets in its possession to the Ukrainians. The old MiG-29s from 1989, which means they're almost 40 years old. The most interesting thing about this situation is that the planes won't just remain at Polish airfields. They plan to gradually retire and dispose of them as they reach the end of their service life. So basically they're saying, dear Ukrainians, we had some disagreements with you, so we won't give you the MiG-29s. So what if you have a war going on? Oh well, we'll just scrap those MiG-29s ourselves. Polish Defense Minister Władysław Kostyniak-Kamysz openly laments this. He says, initially we had agreements about an exchange. We give you our old Soviet aircraft, and in return Kyiv shares its advanced drone production technologies with us. According to the Polish minister, Ukraine failed to honor the agreements. It would be interesting to hear Kyiv's response. Kostyniak-Kamysz directly points out that Kyiv says, well, you have a sharp conflict, but you're having some kind of dealings with Kuwait regarding drones, making some money off it, but you're not sharing it with us, not sharing. And what does that really mean, friends? Kostyniak-Kamysz can, of course, appeal to morality and reciprocity as much as he wants, but it's funny, isn't it? But let's use logic and look at the situation from a materialist perspective. Advanced drone technologies, yes, in today's reality. This is a powerful geopolitical card, and this is a real trump card in the long game and the foundation of military sovereignty. What do you want, yes, our dear Polish brothers? To get software, unique experience in producing the weapons of the future, well, the ones that now, yes, can strike a Russian oil refinery from 2,000 kilometers away. So, and what are you giving us? 4 old Soviet MiGs, yes, that have been in service with the Polish Air Force since 1989, and their service life, or rather, their remaining service life. These MiGs are practically worn out to nothing. Well, that's not the best, to put it mildly, commercial and strategic decision. In Kyiv, they figured it out. Now they see what's happening. Yeah, really, drones are changing the situation. And they think, okay, let's save our trump cards for more profitable deals in this market. The very refusal to hand over the drones and the decision to destroy them, well, that's already a crisis of capitalist partnership. In 2022, yes, there was the first shock. Warsaw played the role of Kyiv's main advocate, hoping for long-term dividends for leadership in Eastern Europe. But you see, the situation is changing. The laws of the market work differently. There is no altruism in politics. And since giving away their own army's weapons for free to please their neighbor no longer brings any interesting instant profit, and the Ukrainian military-industrial complex is trying to survive and monetize its own developments, Poland has started doing the math. Or, as they used to say at my school, a calculator. Hi to you, Dima. So, in the end, coming back to the topic, the combat aircraft, the final withdrawal dates of which the Polish Ministry of Defense immediately classified, maybe they're just written off junk already, who knows? Maybe they were even more dangerous for the pilots to fly. In short, they'll ingloriously rot away in hangars, get scrapped for metal, and that'll be the kind of monument to a union that never happened. Well, friends, in short, Ukraine won't be getting any MiGs, although honestly, I think every plane would help. All right, let's move on. Our second topic is fear, the shadow fleet, and the siege mentality. Against this grim backdrop, a massive campaign is starting in the Western press. The Telegraph and Onet, which are Polish publications and interestingly part of the same Axel Springer holding, are publishing a scenario of a possible Russian attack on Poland or the Baltic states, citing sources in American and NATO intelligence. Yes, they are writing this seriously, saying there's a warning there will be an attack. It is claimed that Moscow might launch a limited air raid, stage a provocation, a hybrid attack in the border region from Kaliningrad or Belarus, simulate airstrikes and disrupt GPS operations. Well, that's already happening at full speed right now. Or they could stage an incident under the guise of a helicopter rescue mission. At the same time, The Guardian, citing the International Institute for Strategic Studies, publishes a frightening report. It turns out that at the end of 2024, 144 incidents were recorded, when Russian drones, launched from Shadow Fleet vessels, monitored nuclear facilities in Europe with impunity for a year and a half over the British Lakenheath base and the French nuclear submarine base on Île Longue. Well, here it's just such a deafening and unclear situation. It's hard to tell if it's just informational noise or something more, because they're referring to intelligence agencies, right? And do you remember whose intelligence warned Kyiv that there would be an attack in 2022 for 3 or 4 months, right? Well, they said, get ready for barbecues. Let's return to the topic. Two interconnected factors are at play. First of all, Donald Tusk, on the eve of the NATO summit in Ankara, where they are planning to discuss allocating additional billions to Kyiv, needs to somehow justify his tough stance. He openly urges the Polish delegation, come on friends, let's be cautious in any statements about further financial support for Ukraine. And the wording is impeccable. Well, Donald, he's been in politics for years, for decades actually. He says, we're not against helping Ukraine, of course, they're our neighbors. But Poland bears a colossal burden in protecting its own border, which is also the border of all of Europe. The appearance of news about the threat of invasion perfectly legitimizes this selfish course. Money and resources should remain in the Polish defense budget. What are you going to come up with there? Ukraine will somehow fend for itself with shovels. Secondly, the authors of the newspaper Insider Reports write that during the hybrid attack, Russia is counting on Poland under pressure from the US not to open fire, but to be forced to negotiate. And that's where a healthy dose of military political skepticism kicks in. Not from me, of course, but from the cab driver I ride with. He says, excuse me, does Poland have any options? Let's look at things realistically. The real defense potential of Warsaw for conducting a full-scale, high-intensity technological conflict is close to zero. It's very interesting to see. This is for the taxi driver. Look, you understand, right? Remember this, take note. The taxi driver says it's interesting to see. Now, in theory, a theoretical question. But what will happen? What will you do, dear Poles? What will you negotiate about if, God forbid, a little Oreshnik or at least a Zircon suddenly hits somewhere like Rzeszów? So what will you do? Will you look for that button to activate NATO's Article 5, right? Well, you'll find it, and then what? Do you really think the states will start a global nuclear apocalypse for your sake? Write in the comments what you think. Will the US stand up for Poland or not? I think it's doubtful. Analysts are debating whether these publications represent a real threat or are just a tactic to distract Polish society from disputes with Ukraine by focusing on an external enemy. Like, all of this is made up. Russia never attacked anyone, right? Kyiv, as I mentioned, ironically didn't believe until the last moment in February 2022 that this would really happen. They went on talk shows, argued, joked around, did the "you're crazy" gesture. They were getting ready for the famous barbecues, but look how it all turned out in the end. History, in my opinion, is a harsh lady. It doesn't forgive carelessness or blind faith in some paper guarantees. And the European air defense system, as they admit behind the scenes in the European Union after the incidents with these drone flights over nuclear facilities, well, when faced with new threats like these, it's practically naked. 144 drones were flying and not a single one was shot down. Share your thoughts in the comments. Now, for part 3 of our video, friends, if you haven't already, please hit the like button. Economic cooling is inevitably followed by ideological escalation because the political superstructure always responds to changes in the base. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk states directly and unequivocally, "Our unconditional Polish goodwill towards you, dear Ukrainians, has ended." Warsaw will no longer be the only one making concessions. Now, here's the reason. The reason for such tensions, yes, is traditionally that the Ukrainian leadership, as we've mentioned more than once, has given one of the Ukrainian armed forces brigades the name of UPA figures. UPA heroes. According to Tusk, Ukrainian politicians must realize that escalation is harmful, but reconciliation is impossible without historical truth. Moreover, this issue is quickly being moved to the supranational level, because the largest faction in the European Parliament, the European People's Party, which includes Tusk's own party, has already introduced an amendment to the report on Ukraine's European integration. It is proposed to directly link the topic of the Volhynia tragedy, the conduct of exhumation work, and the historical dialogue with the process of Kyiv joining the European Union. President Nawrocki of Poland is saying the same thing. This raises a logical question. Why are the Volyn massacre and historical memory now key factors in Ukraine's progress toward EU membership? Did Polish elites only learn about this yesterday? What's happening there on January 1 steam? Whose portraits are they carrying in Kyiv? Of course not. They all knew perfectly well before. The thing is, history in the hands of the ruling classes is always a tool for legitimizing current political objectives. As long as Kyiv was needed as a battering ram, yes, as a shield, they would overlook ideological nuances. My God, they walk around there in some unit with a red and black flag. Well, my God, as long as they're keeping the Russians there, let them walk around. When it's over, then we'll think about it. Yeah, basically they turned a blind eye, and today the situation is stable, difficult, but stable, yeah. Poland's economic costs have increased. And of course, there are also these Ukrainian refugees. We need to protect the border, possibly right on the front line. So, in Warsaw, they needed a legitimate reason that would strike deep emotional chords with ordinary people to roll back their unconditional support. It's a brilliant bureaucratic maneuver. Poland is elegantly shifting the blame for stalling integration processes onto Kyiv itself. And to finally make things clear regarding the regional hierarchy, representatives of the Polish president's office casually refer to the western Ukrainian regions as Little Poland. This is a term that was officially used in interwar Poland from 1918 to 1939. That is, from 1918 to 1939, when these regions were part of Poland, and the names Western Ukraine or Eastern Galicia were forbidden. In short, the phantom pains over the eastern borderlands haven't gone anywhere. Warsaw persistently reminds everyone who the historical master of this house is. And as for your status, we'll talk about that later. Well, that's how it is, friends. So what's the bottom line? A natural and predictable end to the romantic phase of Eastern European geopolitics. As soon as one side ran out of resources for an equal exchange of technology, or the other lost the desire to spend extra money at their own expense, old historical grievances are immediately brought to light. See, even now terrorism is starting. Territorial sentiments from the interwar period, of course the ghosts of the past had to show up. According to the rules of the genre, the ruling elites will always cover up their selfish, pragmatic economic interests with lofty ideals, whether it's protecting Europe from the Eastern threat or demanding historical justice. Let's watch how events unfold. Of course, the process is already well underway. Where it will lead us, we'll see. So subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss new episodes. Friends, thank you very much for your attention. Take care of yourselves and your loved ones. That's all for now. See you next time. Bye.